I think one of the very important things to keep in mind when you're, and I know I mentioned this previously, but I need to stress it again, and you can't talk to tech coordinators alone and expect to have school-wide change. You can't, I mean, talking to, it's tech coordinators in my state, and I'm sure in others, have this odd role in which they're in charge of a program, but they're not in charge, they're not in charge of the teacher. It's still the principal's job to hold the teacher accountable for their behaviors. And accountable is a funny word. But the idea is they control the technology. They don't always control the people. And the people is our greatest resource of anyone. They're our greatest asset. They're our greatest protection. They're a big part of the solution, and they can't be ignored. And you can't protect your students, and everybody knows this, through technologies alone. And I think that's the biggest thing, is trying to make sure that you can't have these siloed conversations. You got to bring the leaders together and have the conversation together and come up with a solution together. And I think so often just think, if we were to have a security breach or someone was to call you for one, who would they call first? They call your tech director. But it may not even been a tech issue. So many of the breaches are non-tech issues. Someone could have people walk into front offices with everything they need to cause a breach in your district. All they need is a phone. And if you don't have like a clear desk policy, how many front office secretaries are keeping confidential information sitting out there on the front desk? Not because they're being malicious, they just don't know the risks that are being associated with them, or they haven't taken time to think about it. And those are the kinds of things that we want everybody to come together to discuss, because when people understand their behaviors, they understand that no one wants to be that. Everybody wants to be a part of the solution. Everybody wants to keep their kids safe. And once you generate that, once you create that interest and you create that awareness, it's not you trying to push something. They start coming to you. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson we learned in the last year, is making sure that when you're having these conversations, you're including everyone. And we always encourage our tech coordinators and we try to give them the resources that, if they're not from education, it's so interesting, because when you talk to educators, a lot of times they get so intimidated by the tech conversation. And the tech coordinators are sometimes so intimidated by the education conversation. And it's trying to find a way to bring them together so the schools can really work together.